let me go ahead and turn the floor over to Matthew. Matthew is coming to us today from the Seminole County Bar Association Legal Aid Society. It's an organization I know quite well. I was active in the Seminole County Bar Association, which is where the Legal Aid Society came from, earlier in the last decade, and actually volunteered with their Legal Aid Society, which is over on Palmetto Avenue, for better part of a year, and it actually won an award. I won the Guardian of Justice Award for 2012. My husband just gave me a pump-up sign. I was looking this morning on Facebook and found the photo of myself on my Facebook page with Judge McIntosh, where she gave me the award. And my first thought was, man, how I was so thin back then. But at any rate, we're delighted today. I've been wanting to have them come speak because they do such good work in the community. I can tell you the legal community in Seminole County would crumble without the constant assistance of the Legal Aid Society. Today we have, get your name spelled correctly. Hold on a second. Matthew Gripp. My apologies. This thing is
Gripp. Yeah, quite all right. Gripp.
Oh, Gripp. Okay, sorry about that, Matt. Anyway, for the Legal Aid Society, he's a staff attorney who represents vulnerable Seminole County residents in family law, landlord-tenant persons with disabilities cases. First-generation Floridian, Matt grew up in the Fort Lauderdale area, spending some time in Orlando, Miami, and Washington, D.C., and now lives in the Oviedo area with his wife and daughter. Mark's professional experience as a dedicated public service, serving as rated from consulting from the federal government and national nonprofit, serving as assistant general counsel within the Florida state government. While at St. Thomas University College of Law, Matt interned at the United Nations, was a member of the Intercultural Human Rights Law Review, and volunteered at the school-affiliated Human Rights Institute. Matt is proud to
Let me just put it in presentation mode. So, well, first off, let me just say thank you for inviting me this afternoon. It's a real privilege to be able to speak to your organization this afternoon. I know the Rotary Club is dedicated to public service, just like the Seminole County Legal Aid Society is. And for us to share our experience with you this afternoon is a privilege, and thank you for the opportunity. So just to give you a brief overview of who we are, we're a 501c3 organization legally. We were incorporated in 1975, and since that time, we've been serving Seminole County and the underprivileged residents in their civil legal matters in a number of different ways. We are overseen by a board of governors that volunteer their time generously to make the critical management decisions of the organization, but the executive director is critical in implementing those decisions. In fact, this picture on the right, that's Sylvia McLean. She's the executive director. And this was, I'm not sure what year this was, but on the left, this was at the time Representative John Micah presenting a flag that was flown over the Capitol to the organization as a way to say thank you for our service to the residents of Seminole County. And we've been in operation for the last some 40 years, which I take it is about the same amount of time as the local Rotary Club has been operating as well, if I'm not mistaken. And we help a number of different types of cases in a number of different ways. Mainly we focus on the victims of crime, disabled people and disabled veterans, survivors of domestic violence, senior citizens, and other vulnerable Seminole County residents. One of the key areas of focus that our organization takes, and one of the main kind of caseload work that I work as a staff attorney, is representing folks in the landlord-tenant eviction process. And we represent the tenants who can't afford counsel when they've been served with an eviction. And in order to assist them in that legal situation, as you might imagine, there's a number of different issues that come up, especially through the last couple of years when COVID issues were a main driver, and when the CDC when the CDC moratorium, which I don't know how familiar you are with that, the federal government through the Centers of Disease Control issued a moratorium on evictions in the country. And it was ultimately, not to go too far down the details of the process, but eventually the United States Supreme Court issued that it was not within the authority of the federal government to issue that type of stay. And so the eviction moratorium was eventually lifted. So while the moratorium was in place, we helped folks tell the court that they were in this process. We would move the proper paperwork forward to the court to show that their case was under the jurisdiction and that moratorium was applicable. But when that was lifted, we would still represent folks as we have always done in their eviction. Now, our clients, as you might imagine, like I mentioned briefly, have a number of different issues, and we try and assist not just in their legal capacity, but to plug them into the different partner networks that might be able to help them with their various different needs, whether it's housing, transition, or whether it's in the family law context, into shelter providers, when there's a need for one of our clients to basically flee to a shelter to escape domestic violence. And so all of our clients, with a very, very few exceptions, are determined unable to represent themselves through paying an attorney in the normal attorney marketplace, if that's the right way to categorize it. And our assistance through that legal representation helps to put them back on their feet and back on the right track to self-sufficiency and out of this legal jeopardy and life jeopardy that they find themselves in. Now, here's a breakdown of our case load. As you can see, we helped a number of folks, 956 residents, and a total of 1,036 children with legal issues. And the pie chart, as you can see, the vast majority of our work is in three areas: the landlord-tenant area, which I mentioned, and then the two different areas of family and domestic relations, whether it's divorce at 35% or similarly paternity. And those cases that I represent, whether it's in divorce or paternity, we offer what's called a triaged model of representation. Unfortunately, as I'm sure you're aware, there's a overwhelming demand for legal services and a vast shortage of people that are able to provide those services at costs that the folks can afford. And so what we've come up with, as best as we can decide, is a triage model, which means when someone comes through the intake process, we make a decision to say, okay, is this something that we can just offer a one-time consultation to give someone some legal advice, maybe answer some of the questions that they're thinking about filing a divorce? And so we can offer that limited assistance, and then they have those questions answered. But similarly, someone has been served a paternity petition, and so the counterparty has decided to initiate the suit, and then we can also offer a triage model where we can help someone through the process themselves. If there are limited issues, there's not a lot of contention between the parties. Sometimes people just need a helping hand to help them through the court process. And we can offer that helping hand. And please stop me at any time with questions. I see you have a question, Dr. O.
Yes, Matt, do you deal with much bigotry or dealing with issues of hate crimes?
That's a good question. We have seen where I mentioned someone comes to us with a very specific legal question, but they've had a number of different issues that they've had to address in their life that are tangential to that in some way. And yeah, we have seen where bigotry and hatred, and if there's hate crimes that they're victims of, we immediately tell them, if you've been a victim of a crime that's not at issue in this case, like against their domestic, partner, for example, we tell them to report it immediately and go to the authorities as soon as possible. But unfortunately, because we have only 3 staff attorneys and our focus is mainly on family law and domestic relations, when we get cases like that, we refer them out to either our partner attorneys or to the state attorney in order to have the issue addressed in a capacity that in a way that we aren't. But we do see it, unfortunately, a lot. So this, like I said, this chart doesn't capture everything. In fact, I'm just looking at it. One of the cases that I am working on now is an appeal of an adverse decision for government benefits of a young man who's intellectually disabled. And so we help folks with their application to the Florida Agency for Persons with Disability, and to help them get the Medicaid home and community-based services waiver benefits, government benefits that help them, with either in housing or in living assistance, or in basically help them get to self-sufficiency from their intellectual capacity stance. Some of our cases that we help with the guardianship, where we assist in getting a legal guardian for someone who's intellectually disabled. Similarly, we'll help that person apply to the government for their Medicaid intellectually disabled benefits. And so I help with those applications regularly. And one of the applications that was denied, I represented that person at what's called the fair hearing, where a hearing officer from the government allows both sides to argue why either the person is eligible or ineligible. And the hearing officer issued an ineligible decision, and then we decided to appeal that decision to the Florida District Court of Appeal. And so I'm currently writing and representing that brief and that case at the District Court of Appeal. So we get sometimes cases that are similar to what we do regularly, but it's not reflected in this kind of overall pie chart because it doesn't happen every year. Because our main focus is families and specifically children. As you can see, this chart says, we've obtained court orders in an annual amount of $272,000 in child support in arrears and alimony. So our main focus is families and children in Seminole County to help them through their legal issues. And this is just a recap of that. So I said family law, again, is the main focus. I just discussed this briefly. Guardianship and low-income families, and then of course the housing with the eviction. Now I mentioned eviction. There's other issues in housing that we assist with. So when there's a tenant that is in an agreement and a lease with a landlord, and the tenant is being subject to basically bad management, they're not fixing the air conditioner, they're not keeping the place livable with either mold or pests or infestation or something like that. There's a way within the legal framework to begin to notify and start the action to terminate that lease because of the non-compliance by the landlord with the landlord statute and with holding up his end of the bargain with providing a habitable and livable place. And so we assist folks in drafting the formal requirement letters and notifications to the landlord. And then if need be, we give guidance in how to start an action of withholding the rent and then ultimately terminating the lease so they can go and find a place that's not disgusting and is able to sustain their life. We also, there's also a number of different housing issues that we don't necessarily represent, but we refer cases regularly to the other legal aid organizations, and those are Fair Housing Act violations. You mentioned bigotry and discrimination. So we regularly hear accusations that a landlord may have violated the Fair Housing Act, And so we'll refer that case to the other civil rights legal aid organization, and they can then pick up the ball and run with it if they want to bring an action for that violation. We have these special legal projects that we do. They used to be more regular than they are now. We're trying to get back as COVID has started to go away, getting back to more regular kind of rotation with these special projects. And we have a Veterans Monthly Clinic that will have, I believe it's a booth at one of the local branches at the library, and veterans can come and have their legal issues addressed, have any questions that they might have answered. And if it's a case that we can address and represent them, then we can refer them to the intake process, which I'll mention in a moment, to get them into our system to then open the case. We also would do a sealing and expungement monthly workshop for folks who want to have their criminal records either sealed or expunged. And so sometimes we'll have pro bono attorneys come and volunteer, and sometimes it'll be a staff attorney. And we would also do regular, like this afternoon, we'll have workshops and other types of pro bono clinics that we'll schedule with community partners. You know, your kind words about our organization earlier, we try to live up to that, and by service to our community clients, the community partners, the court, obviously, and ultimately, you know, in service of the law, to provide a fair shot at equal justice. And so we're pretty flexible, and we try to be as creative as possible to schedule those. Now, we mentioned in this slide, there's something called the Civil Gideon movement. And there's another presentation where we kind of go through what all that means. And I'll just mention it briefly. So I'm sure you're all aware that everyone in this country has a right to be represented by a lawyer when they're charged with a crime. You know, the state provides state, federal, defenders, public defenders. At the federal level, there's federal public defenders. And it all springs from this United States Supreme Court case called Gideon v. Wainwright. And over time, the legal aid society, the legal aid movement, has kind of coalesced around this idea. And there's some disagreement. It's not, you know, whole cloth, where that right to representation should be expanded to the civil law context, where if someone is, say, given a notice of eviction, they would have a right to be represented. If someone is served with a paternity action, that they would have a right to be represented. And it's under this theory of civil Gideon, or applying the right to counsel in the interest of fairness and in the interest of justice for people who can't afford to be represented, to have that representation provided for them. And the legal aid movement and us at Legal Aid, we try as best as we possibly can to help everyone that comes to our door. But unfortunately, we have limited resources, and there's just so much of a need out there. And so part of this movement has been to leverage that same situation that legal aids across this country are in, to make a plea to the country to say, please, let's create this right. Let's provide the opportunity for people to be represented, because there's a legion of unfairness that's happening when people are evicted, or you know, there's some injustice done unto them simply because they don't have fair representation, and they don't have the tools to be able to defend against some of these legal attacks that come against them. So that's kind of a brief overview of Civil Gideon. And maybe, you know, the next time that we're invited to your August group, is maybe we can go a little bit more in detail about Civil Gideon and Gideon v. Wainwright, if you all are interested.
I would very much like that. This is Melissa, I'd very much like that. Also, the Veterans Clinic, is it held monthly?
It was held monthly. It was the regular scheduling was halted because of COVID. And I believe that the executive director is in the process of getting a regular schedule back up and running.
I'd like to be on it. I'd like to come help.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. I'll forward that along to Ms. McLean. Yeah, because the Veterans Clinic is something that, you know, we call it a special legal project, you know, and it sounds like it's just kind of this one-off thing, but it's something that we hope to have it as a main pillar of service that we provide to the community.
That'd be great. Like I said, I'd love to help out with that. Does anybody else have any questions for Matt?
There used to be one in Orange County in our courthouse, in Northwest Branch Courthouse, and then it disappeared, but they try to bring people out to Apopka on a regular basis, but we're kind of a little forgotten corner, even though we're the second largest city in Orange County.
Yes.
So
Do
with
y'all hear
that,
me?
yeah, of course. Yeah. You know, I'm happy to answer any other questions you have. That's basically the end of the presentation. But I just want to again express my appreciation and thanks for your invitation. And you know, it's always a pleasure to speak with fellow organizations that are dedicated to serving Central Florida and Seminole County.
We certainly appreciate you spending some time with us on this Saturday afternoon. Does anybody else have any questions?
Do you have your details back there? Did you, your information, your contact information and such?
I forwarded along. Let me see. This this PowerPoint is has Sylvia's information, but let me give you my here. Why don't I exit out this? How do I? Let me see if I can stop the screen share. And let me chat. I'll send you my.
Okay.
Here's my phone number. It's 407-834-1660 extension 111. And then my email address is just my first name, Matthew, and then my last initial G at scabalas.com, SCBALAS.com.
Okay.
And please, if you have any questions or follow-up issues, or if you're having another meeting on legal issues, please reach out. I'd be happy to come and talk with you all again. It's been a treat.
Thank you. We will definitely take you up on that.
Well,
Okay.
we'd love to have you join the club and participate with us. It would be wonderful.
In fact, if you're interested, please come back next week. I'll be happy to put you on the mailing list. We're going to have our little brainstorm session about how we can get involved with helping out with the Ukraine.
Yeah, that would be great. What's the best way to get in touch with you all? Well, I have the email from earlier.
Yes.
So yeah, I'll send it along. And what's the email? What's the website address?
Rotary EClub of Florida.org.
Rotary
EClub of Florida.org.
Yeah, that would be great. I'll see, because what's happening in the Ukraine is a travesty, to say the least. And any way that I can try and help, I'm certainly going to try and do that. So yeah, I appreciate it.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Well, everybody, in that case, with that brings us to the end of our meeting today. And I think it's time for the 4-way test. Phyllis, if you'll lead us.
Of the things we think,
say, and do. Is it truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Is it beneficial to all concerned? And is it fun? All righty. Well, thank you so much for coming by, and I hope to see you next week. Take care and have a great week, everyone.
Thanks again. Bye-bye. Nice to meet you all.
Thanks, Matthew. Bye.